Good evening. My name is Michael Strada, and I am the professor, your instructor for this semester. Um, Basically, I want to walk through Module 1 with this video and show you things. All right, so I am going to share my screen. There we go. All right. All right. So, basically, what we're looking at is some little things that can help you. All right. So, all right, using a number line. Basically, anything to the left of the number line is less than the number to the right. So if we were to compare, usually it's people are pretty good with positive numbers. For example, 5 is greater than 4. All right. We're good with comparing negative numbers to positive numbers. For example, negative 4 is less than positive 3. Negative numbers are less than 0. All right. Found here in the center. Positive numbers are greater. Where people sometimes struggle is with the negative numbers, comparing them to each other. So let's say we were going to compare negative 7 to negative 10. All right. Well, negative 7 is going to be located right here. All right. And negative 10 is going to be located right here. All right. So basically, anything to the left is less than anything to the right. So as a result, if we visualize that, we can come up with a conclusion. All right. That negative 10 is less than negative 7, or negative 7 is greater than negative 10, depending upon how the problem in WebAssign structures it. Second thing we're going to look at is a formatting question. For example, which of the following integers is less than negative 2? Select all that apply. So we're focusing on this statement right there. Don't confuse this with multiple choice questions where you only pick one. As soon as it says select all that apply, please realize that there are multiple ones that are possible. All right, so 0 is obviously greater than negative 2. Like we said, 0 is here, negative 2 is there. Negative 1 is also less than negative 2 because negative 1 is here and negative 2. Negative 2 is equal to negative 2. Make sure you read correctly. All right, so basically make sure you distinguish between less than and equal to and just less than. This problem is saying less than, so since negative 2 is equal to, it's not. Negative 3 is to the left of negative 2, so negative 3 would be one you would select, and negative 4 is less than negative 2. All right, if you struggle with that, the horizontal version, feel free to use a number line. All right, feel free to use a number line, like a temperature gauge. All right. So if you want, you can certainly go horizontal and think about freezing temperatures. Right now, we're going through a little bit of a cold snap. So basically, realize that negative 3 and negative 4 are colder than negative 2. Therefore, they would be less than it. Now, you are going to have some problems that assign absolute value. Absolute value is the distance the number is from 0. Since it is a distance, it has to be positive. However, they will format some questions. All right. Like here, where it says the negative of negative, the absolute value of negative 3. Well, the negative on the outside stays, and then the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. But the negative on the outside turns it back into a negative. All right. So we have a negative 3. All right. So basically, what you're looking at is this: if there's no negative on the outside, your final answer should be positive. When there's a number that's positive, when there's a negative on the outside, your final answer is negative. All right, next thing we're going to look at is when asked to find a number and units from a value. So let's say we're looking at negative, oops, didn't want to use that symbol. So it's still underlining, I don't know why. All right, so let's say the number they give you is negative 3. All right, so let's say the number they give you is negative 3, and they want a number that's 5 units from negative 3. All right, so that's where -3 is. 5 units is you count 5 in both directions. All right, so 5 units to the left would put you at -8. All right, and then 5 units to the right would be +2. So when they ask you those problems, make sure you realize you got to go in both directions. All right, now when they give you a series of signed numbers and you're adding and multiplying, all right, subtraction's a little different, division's a little different because the order in which you do it. All right, but when you're adding, I would suggest when you do it, all right, add all the negatives together first because when you add numbers of the same sign, all right, you add the absolute values and keep the sign. So I'm looking at U -3, I'm looking at U -5, and I'm looking at U -1. All right, those are our 3 negative numbers. If I add those together, -3 plus -5 is -8. -8 plus -1 totals up to -9. Now I'm going to look at the positives, 4 and 7, and add those up. Hopefully everybody realizes 4 plus 7 is 11. And now you're just going to add those numbers. Remember, when you're adding signed numbers, all right, of different signs, you're going to subtract their absolute values. So 11 minus 9 gives you 2. And then look for the number that has the larger absolute value or distance from 0. Since 11 is larger than 9 and 11 is positive, your final answer is positive. All right. Same thing happens with multiplication. All right. With multiplication, keep in mind, all right, that when you have an even number of negatives, your final answer is positive. And when you have an odd number of negatives, your final answer is going to be negative. So if I look at my first example and I count 1, 2, 3. So I have 3 negative numbers. So without doing anything else, all right, I know my final answer is negative. So now I'm just going to multiply the numbers together and keep the negative. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 times 5 is 120. So the product of those would be -120. If I look at the next one, I realize I have 2 negatives. Since 2 is even, I know my final answer is positive. All right. So I would multiply those numbers together. 6 times 7 is 42. 42 times 8 is 336. 336 times 9, I believe, is 3,024. So my final answer would be 3,024. So keep that in mind. It'll make sure. Now, the last thing in Module 1 that tends to trick people sometimes is dividing by 0. You have to visualize the problem. All right. So when you divide 0 by 6, you're saying you have 0 objects divided among 6 people. Okay. Well, since you have nothing and you're dividing that among 6 people, if 6 people look for something from nothing, they're all going to end up with nothing. So basically, 0 divided by any number is 0. Now, when we go the other direction, 6 objects divided into 0 groups. Can't do that. Try to visualize it. It can't be done. As a result, all right, this does not exist. All right, and make sure you follow directions for those problems. All right, I hope that helps. Best of luck in Module 1, and I'm sure we'll be communicating this week. Take care.